indulge in this beautiful food as well. So, all right, welcome to the July 1st, 2026 Planning Commission work session. Tonight we've got some exciting projects that we get to review. Also, we've got two new planning commissioners to introduce, as well as an additional one that's not able to make it this evening. But we'll make an introduction to both of you and then also go around the table and make an introduction as to what district that you're in. Also, a little bit about yourself. And we'll also add one additional thing, one thing that nobody else at this table will know about you. So we're gonna just make it just a little bit more enjoyable tonight. So Sarah, we'll kick off with you.
I'm Sarah Kovac. I moved to Utah in 2018 and to Cottonwood Heights in 2019. We live down the street from the rec center, so have three very.
This is a closed meeting, guys. Thank you.
What's an open meeting, but
I'm sorry. For communication, yes.
Have three active kids and pretty involved around the city. I've been on the architectural commission for I don't even know how long.
For a minute, yeah.
I was pregnant with my last kid at a meeting, so she's 4. So it's been a minute, and have really enjoyed that process and wanted to get more involved with our local community. And so applied to be on this. I'm looking forward to serving. I'm a licensed architect. That's my background. I work for Maverick Corporate. I'm over their architecture and engineering department, but have done land development for my whole career. So looking forward to getting to know everybody.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Gary.
I'm a retired commercial banker. I'm currently a real estate trainer, work for a consulting company. In terms of things that you might not know, I'm a former general aviation pilot. I've been in Cottonwood Heights about 20 years.
What kind of pilot, Gary?
General aviation.
General aviation.
Meaning I wasn't military.
Yeah, okay.
Dan Polson lived in Cottonwood Heights for, I don't know, 50 some odd years.
Wow.
Just like to get involved in the community, been on the council or in the commission for 3 years now. The thing that you wouldn't know about me, that's easy. I ate lunch with some friends in the Russian Officers Club in East Berlin when the wall was up. Couldn't throw you out.
I don't know how I can top that. Rusty Lugo, I've been on the commission for just over a year now. I'm a commercial real estate agent focused on mostly office buildings. And I live across the street, been in the community since 2015, just love it. Served as the PTA president at the school, junior achievement, love volunteering. And last week I came back from Nashville. My son's a musician. He was over there and had a gig, and my pet snake was dying, and I rushed him down to the exotic pet hospital, and they saved him.
Wow.
What was wrong with him?
The light bulb had gone out. Our house sitter didn't realize, and it's just bad timing. So he was freezing to death, hibernating, and we had to heat him up. Not in the microwave.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, he's thriving. I didn't realize I was so attached to the guy, but 12 years, and he's thriving. So,
Mike Crowder, really excited to be here. Never done anything in government or anything like this before. So it just seemed like a fun thing. I'm in residential real estate, from Georgia originally. Been out in Utah since 2005, Cottonwood Heights since 2018. And I'm excited to see how this whole process works and contribute somehow, hopefully. I'm a pilot as well, just for fun. So that's pretty much it.
Well, welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm Tiffany Jansen and I'm the city recorder. No, we already know that about you.
But
Tiffany.
we need you to.
Something
Me.
Oh, God.
Give us something we can use against you later.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been skydiving before.
Oh,
I like it. I like it.
Okay, talk about that.
Would you go?
no base jumping.
Oh, yeah, I like
Okay,
that.
that's good.
Why would you jump out of a perfectly good airplane?
Good question.
Says the pilot. Love it, love it.
Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so Jim Spung, the Community and Economic Development Director. Been here almost a year, so in a few weeks will be my 1 year mark, which is weird. Seems like it's been a minute,
Does,
but it also is like flown by, but
made a great impact here.
yeah, well, thanks. Went to school at the U. I'm originally from the Chicago area. Born and raised there, and then went to the University of Utah, did my undergrad and graduate studies in planning, and then stayed. Been here ever since, so it's weird to look back and so I feel, yeah, I graduated high school like 25 years ago, you know, the number keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Oh, yeah.
And real. But anyway, happy to be here. I've also piloted an aircraft, something that people may not know about me. I was working on my license for a while and then had a whole ton of kids. So I'll pick it back up. That's my point, but a lot of fun.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, Sean Steinman, I've been in the community, gosh, 10 years that we've lived here. I went to Brighton High School before that, so grew up in Sandy. Own a small little boutique development company, and then we have a residential component and a commercial component from the brokerage side of it, as well as a little cafe up the road. And then I've been on planning commission since I believe 2021 or 2022. Co-chair last year, chair this year. And I'm also the state director for the Home Builders Association, so
Yeah.
heavily involved in the development world and real estate world. Something that you guys don't know about me, I used to take glider lessons in the aviation settings. And volunteered up at Heber Airport and got glider lessons out of doing that. So spent a lot of time up in gliders, and there's a P-51 Mustang up there that I always wanted to fly in, but I never, you know, as a young kid, didn't ever ask to go fly with him, but
Wow.
that's my one regret. But yeah, it's great to have you guys. Welcome. It's a great impact on the community, and just being able to work on all the land use work that we are dealing with. And we've got a lot of fun projects here in the next few years that you guys are a part of this, including the we've got Mike Shelton as well. But yeah, a lot of fun projects that we've got going on over the next few years here. So Patwood Heights is growing, and we've got incredible things happening. So we've got Mike Shelton online. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mike Shelton. I'm from District 1. The thing you don't know about me is that introducing myself makes me really uncomfortable. So I'll stop there.
Wonderful.
Oh, come on.
Thanks, Mike. Wish you were here. I hope you're on a beach. All right, moving forward, we have got the review of the business session items, project SUB -26-004. And Jim, if you want to kick that off.
Yeah, so before I do that, if it's okay, everyone should have a book. If you didn't get a book,
I don't have a book or.
alright,
Do I need to put that next time?
nope, we got one here for you.
Oh.
Thank you.
So this book in front of you is a land use guide. So it's sponsored by the Utah Land Use Institute, and it's written by Craig Call and Will Summercorn. So I don't know if either of those names sound familiar, but Craig Call is a very distinguished attorney. He was actually the professor for land use law at the university when I was there. He taught both undergraduate and graduate courses. He was the Utah ombudsman for a number of years, and a practicing law attorney. So he knows the stuff. And then Will Summercorn is also an attorney. He also taught law up at the University of Utah in land use law. I believe he was the city attorney for Salt Lake City, maybe. He's been a city attorney all over the state. He's now retired, but he spends all of his time up on the Hill during the legislative session. So he's really the go-to guy for keeping, you know, the professional field up to speed on what's happening with legislation. He's got a blog that's super helpful. I can send you the link to that, but it's just on the Utah Land Use Institute website. Anyway, because of the changing landscape with land use law stuff, they thought it would be helpful to write a book about, you know, the general rules and, you know, just different things that are really applicable with land use and development that a layperson could understand, which is great for planning commissioners or public or staff or really whoever. So I encourage you to flip through the book. Later this year, we'll probably do some trainings out of here as required by state law. But I mean, chapter 1 is what is land use planning? So it starts at pretty much the ground level and then takes you through several scenarios. So it's a great read. I sent out the links to the 2 YouTube videos. There's 2 parts. It's actually Craig and Wilf giving the lecture about this book, I believe, and they kind of run through what different case studies, case law, scenarios that they run into in planning. And then they're usually at every planning conference every spring and fall to give updates on land use happenings around the state. So anyway, you have a copy, hang on to it because in the future we'll review some stuff in here to satisfy some of our training. With that, let me go to the agenda for tonight. In here. All right, so the first item tonight is the subdivision application for a single-family residential project. So it's the existing LDS Church property just across the street from City Hall on the corner of 2300 East and Bingham Boulevard. Ivory Homes purchased that property. The current zoning is R18, and they are proposing a 10-lot single-family residential subdivision on that site, and I'll run through here just at a high level what that entails. So tonight's request is for preliminary plat approval. So because it's one large lot, in order to subdivide it into individual lots, it has to be platted and approved by the city to ensure that it meets the standards that the city has adopted for a subdivision. They are proposing a new public street, and a portion of the project will be managed by an HOA, mostly for stormwater retention. So here is a screenshot of what the proposed plat looks like. You'll see 10 individual lots there with property lines, new public utility easements, the new public street. It doesn't have a name yet. That will be something that they'll formalize after talking with Salt Lake County to see what names are available, as well as what their preferences are. So access will be provided off of Bengal Boulevard, and then it will just terminate into a cul-de-sac inside the project. Parcel A up in the top left corner. I'm pointing at stuff, but I don't have my little laser turned on. So parcel A in the top left corner will serve as the water detention pond for the stormwater, and that's what will be managed by the HOA. So the existing zoning for that property is R18, so it's residential, single family, which is 1, and then 8 means 8,000 square foot lot size minimum. The proposal is detached single family, maintaining the existing zoning. After staff review, we found that the subdivision complies with all the dimensional requirements for the zone that's there.
Mike, we're right here just for the new commissioners. Why, with this being R18, do we have to see this at planning commission with this being a subdivision?
Yeah, so in your book, it answers that question. So the state grants land use authority and zoning authority to cities, and as part of that authority, the city designates a body or an approval of, they call it a land use authority, to approve certain types of applications. So in Cottonwood Heights, any subdivisions that have 10 lots or more requires review and approval by the planning commission.
Okay.
which is why that's here.
Another
tonight.
question on the zoning, R1A residential, right?
Yeah.
So, but there's a church there now. Did they have to, how long has the church been there? Just curious.
Probably a very long
Long-
time.
long time.
I don't know.
So how did
It
that-
would predate the city, so.
Yeah. So did the LDS church need to, does that fall under R1A? I'm just.
Yeah, so
curious.
generally
Okay.
it would. So
Okay.
most church properties are zoned residential. It's
Ah.
typically a conditional use.
Got it.
In a residential zone.
Okay,
So, yeah,
cool.
so here you can see that the smallest lot that's proposed is 8,700 square feet, which exceeds the minimum lot area. The largest lot they are proposing is 17,000. So that's probably lot 108. That's pretty big. And then here, the minimum lot widths you see are wider than would the minimum would require. So as far as traffic access, utilities and infrastructure, the applicant did submit and provide a traffic study, a traffic impact study by a professional engineering firm. The city's engineering department has reviewed that and doesn't have any concerns about what that study has provided. That project anticipates about 94 average daily trips, so about 94 cars coming and going throughout the day. Just one second. During the morning peak hours, which is generally 7 to 9 a.m., they anticipate 7 peak trips, and then PM is 9. And essentially, the conclusion of that study where there were no significant traffic impacts that would affect the safety of the existing roadways that are being served. You have a question?
When we were looking at that statistic for the old mill, 7 was that, and it was per household. And so that would really be 70 trips for this. I'm wondering why the increase.
So that's common for the whole day, not necessarily in the morning or evening.
Well,
time.
they've specified here 7 in the morning,
Yeah.
9 in the evening,
Mhm.
and I'm just wondering why they did both of those figures. I'm trying to figure out how they came up with their trips, and if it's, my basic thought is, were they really gonna have the impact on traffic that traffic study says that they're gonna have? Based on all the stuff that we went through,
Mhm.
for the traffic impact that Old Mill would have.
Yeah, that's what the report said. So I'm not sure. I can pull it up and check between the sessions.
Was that, I guess my bigger question then is that gonna have an impact on our approval or not approval, or it's just that's their opinion and go for it?
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I mean, I think the bigger question is what level of impact would require mitigation on the adjacent streets? So there's plenty of capacity on Bangor Boulevard and 2300 East.
Mhm.
So even if that number were 300, it may still have no impact on those streets. So that's what the engineers will look at. And the city, as I said, city engineers reviewed it and didn't find any concerns with their analysis and the conclusions. But I can pull that up between meetings and answer more specifically where that.
I'm just curious about this.
Sure. As far as the public services, because it's a public street, it will be owned by the city. All infrastructure will be provided at the developer's expense. So there are new sidewalks, storm drains, the detention pond which will be privately owned and HOA maintained, sewer, culinary water. So all the typical things that would be required to serve any residential lots in the city. As I mentioned, engineering, public works, Unified Fire and Salt Lake Public Utilities have reviewed the proposal. There are a couple of lingering technical comments that we'll complete during the final plat review, like the street name, specific addressing for parcels. If there's any other, engineering details that need to be addressed, that will generally follow during the final plat review. We did send a public notice, so within 1,000 feet of the property, mail notices were sent out. To date, we haven't received any official public comments. I know that, folks are here tonight and will probably attend the public meeting that can make comment during the public hearing portion. So based on that, staff recommends approval based on the following that the preliminary plat substantially conforms with the adopted codes. The final plans will be reviewed and approved by all the city departments and referral agencies prior to final plat. The developer will be required to have a bond in place for all the public infrastructure before plat recordation. The applicant still has to comply with all of the standards, so if during the final review we catch something that we missed earlier, they would also be subject to complying with that. Any easements that are necessary, which are also on the plat. As I mentioned, parcel A, the stormwater detention facility. So the HOA is responsible for that. Those agreements will be recorded with CC&Rs with the plat, so that we have something on record officially saying that they're responsible. The reason we do that is because if the storm detention fails, that could flood the homes in that area or cause issues to city infrastructure. So we have a stormwater agreement that essentially requires them to maintain that storm detention basin so that if in the event something does happen, they're liable for anything. And then based on our current code, the final plat has to be recorded within 1 year of preliminary plat approval. If it's not recorded in that time, they would have to reapply and go through this process again. Any questions on that one? Yes.
Guess I'm gonna find the ointment tonight. Was there any discussion about having the entrance and exit of the subdivision on Bengal versus 2300 East?
So it is on Bengal.
I can see that.
Oh, 2300 instead of Bengal?
Yes. The reason I ask is just this last week, I ran into one of the council members and they asked me what I thought about that, the way it's platted now. Had we thought about 2300 East, their opinion that they had gotten from someone else, I have no idea. But it was just a casual question, but it got me thinking, would it be superior to be on 2300 East versus Bengal Boulevard?
I think my only concern with 2300 East is look at how much closer it is to the roundabout access. If you went straight out and kept those parcels large enough, you're going to be like 70% closer to the roundabout access than you would be on Bengal, from what I can see based on that parcel. So I think that would be the one concern that I would see on that, because I was thinking about the exact same thing, and then of course Jim probably has a different opinion on that, but I even think that, you know, even access points, this is a complex site just because of that roundabout.
Yeah.
And any type of traffic mitigation is going to be important for us to evaluate, but
Yeah.
the traffic study and also our engineers stated that this is adequate. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it meets the city standards today. So if we could ask the developer that during the public.
But the only reason I'm bringing that up in this meeting is to put on record that we discussed that option, because I'm sure that that concern will be raised when the commission approves what we suggest. And just for fun, this afternoon, I did a little bit of traffic study and kept track of how many cars were utilizing the roundabout from westbound, eastbound on Bengal Boulevard, southbound on 2300 East, how many cars turned from Bengal Boulevard or entered going northbound on 2300 East, trying to get a feel for the traffic flow in the area to see if the supposition suggested that there was less traffic on 2300 East than on Bengal. My conclusion is that just about 36% of the people who come westbound on Bengal Boulevard make a right onto 2300. I had, of the 171 cars that utilized the roundabout in the time period I watched, which wasn't very long, to be honest, it was about 15 minutes. But there's 171 and 43 of those were southbound on on 2300 East. The upshot of what I did was, it's really not all that much less busy on 2300 East. The advantage on Bengal Boulevard is they have a middle lane. That's a turn lane that's in the project. And so the likelihood that backups, which do occur at that roundabout, would be less likely to impact their coming and going from the subdivision. And also, since they have a turn lane there, if they are having trouble getting across the westbound traffic on Bengal Boulevard, they won't impede the eastbound because they're in a turn lane, and which they don't have on 2300 East.
Mhm.
So
Sure. Yeah.
that's,
It's a
that
good.
it looks like that the way they platted it
Mhm.
would be the ideal way. Like I said, the only reason I want to put that on is so when that question comes up with the council, we
Mhm.
looked at it.
Sure. And we can ask the developer also in the public meeting as to the rationale behind the current layout design.
Oh,
So,
don't get me wrong, I agree entirely, and the reason that I did all of that was to see if my position, just my feeling, held water, and it does.
Yeah. Great.
So I'm not against that.
no, that's perfectly fine. Any other questions on this one?
What is the requirement from roundabout entrance and exit? What is the amount of feet that is required to have an access point? Just because that roundabout was installed after the church already had shut down, there hasn't been any substantial traffic that's been going in there. I'm also just curious what kind of contingency we have there.
Yeah, I would have to check. That would be an engineering standard that they would have looked at,
Well, this is,
but I would have to look and see what the code.
what that works out as is if you just draw straight lines from the street that they have to be what the exit would be on 2300 East. There's about 2.5 car lengths between the southernmost border of that street and the end of the roundabout. So if you're pulling out, you've got 2.5 car lengths to make a decision as to whether it's safe for you to pull out or not. If you pull out on Bengal Boulevard, it works out that it's about 10.5 car lengths. So it's not at all equal. So
Right.
Bengal Boulevard really is the way to go.
Sure.
And another question on this, they're maintaining all sidewalks there as well. So they're going to have north, south, east, west sidewalks for access?
Yeah, all the streets meet the current city cross section and standards, so they're not asking for any exceptions.
Okay,
To street standards or sidewalks or party strips or anything.
perfect.
Getting out of that subdivision at 7 AM on a school day, it's gonna be like getting up Little Cottonwood Canyon on a powder day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I avoid like meetings I set around that school
Mhm.
schedule.
Well, here too, I mean, coming to work. is-
Yeah, you
Yeah,
deal with it
same.
too, in all directions too,
Yeah,
so,
buyer beware, I guess.
yeah.
Any other questions on that?
I actually have one.
Yeah,
So when they put the streets in, developers paying to put the streets in and the sidewalks within the neighborhood, and then Calvin Heights is including them from that point?
correct. Yeah, so the way it works is because they're developing the site, they're building all the infrastructure.
Okay.
And then the city will hold a bond for the amount of essentially the full value
Right.
of that construction until it's completed. After it's completed and inspected by the city to say that it meets the standard, the city will retain 10% of that amount for a year in case something were to fail. So
And that's the plumbing, everything is handed over to Calvin Heights once they approve it. But the bond is held just to make sure it functions for the first year.
yeah, so any city-owned infrastructure.
Got
So
it.
Salt Lake City owns the water system. There's an improvement district that does sewer. So we own the streets, the sidewalk, curb gutter, and the stormwater infrastructure.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jim, did you say that the city will retain a 10%
Yeah,
of that amount for
right.
12 months per year?
Right, and,
Okay.
and that's if the contract, essentially like a contractor's insurance to where if the sidewalk starts failing or there's a big
Yeah.
sinking in the street, we have money on hand to go fix that
Sure.
without having to use taxpayer dollars.
Okay. Is that unique to this project, or would that apply to all projects
That's,
of similar?
that
nature?
applies everywhere as far as I know.
They're similar,
Every
okay.
city everywhere does that.
Okay.
They call it a guarantee bond.
Yeah.
To make sure that the city's not on the hook for some
Sure,
crappy construction.
understand.
Are we gonna talk about like landscaping along Bengal and 2300 East as well? Cause you're just basically gonna have a line of fences theoretically. Or are there requirements? Because it looks like the backside of the sidewalk is on the property line.
Yeah.
I guess.
Right here.
Visibility,
You see what I'm
visibility
saying?
right here and visibility right here.
And just the
Aesthetic.
look, yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
that would be a. It's usually we have the homes facing the street, so
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's not like one or two houses, it's the whole development, a lot.
Yeah, and I can check on that before the next meeting as well.
Okay.
Just to confirm. I don't
For
see
a
it.
site that's been relatively open at that
Mhm.
corner, that's kind of a big change, and you do have a lot of
Yeah, I don't see
school
a,
traffic and pedestrian traffic in school hours, like, I think we would wanna make sure there's good visibility.
right, I don't see a landscape plan in here. It doesn't look like,
I just didn't either, that's why I was.
yeah, so I'll check on that.
Okay.
Great question.
And then outside of our purview, are we doing an evaluation of impact fees within the city? Start exploring that
Not-
option?
Not actively,
Okay.
no. It's tricky because,
You have to study every.
well, you do, but the city's built out in essence to where impact fees generally only make sense if you have huge areas that are being used. Because when you collect an impact fee, you can only use it for new infrastructure. You can't use it to replace anything. And you have to spend it in a certain amount of time.
Mm.
So like this project, for example. Yeah, it's just hard. It's almost more expensive to administer because there's a lot of state requirements with finance than it is a benefit to the city. At least for Cottonwood Heights. Other
Yeah.
places, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just know park upkeep especially, I don't know if that's allowed within impact fees, but I've seen that in other cities.
Yeah,
Or more built out cities that they maintain in the parks.
yeah, and some places do charge a park impact fee, but again, you can only use that money for a new park.
Is it just
Not-
new?
Yeah, you can't use it
Not
to
existing.
maintain anything.
Okay,
And that's where it gets tricky, is we're not building a ton of new parks.
Yeah.
Citywide to justify having a fee that would do that. And any developments generally that do construct a park is on the developer's expense. It's not necessarily the city building it, just like this project. Okay. So the next application item for tonight is a zoning text amendment. So this is a city initiated amendment to clean up some of the provisions in 19.34. As part of the packet, you received the redlined changes showing what's gonna be different. So the big change here is changing the setback in the RM or residential multifamily zone from 30 feet from the street to 20 feet or 30 feet from the property line. So usually the back of the sidewalk to the structure. Currently it's 30 feet, which is really big for a multifamily project, the 20 feet. And then, let's see, also changing some of the standards, just to clarify standards for townhouses. So right now, the side setbacks don't account for an attached or attached townhouse product. Because generally, if you own a townhouse, you have a 0 setback because you share a wall with your neighbor, right? And then between buildings, there's generally 5 to 10 feet to satisfy the building code. Our current code does not differentiate setbacks for a single family detached home, an apartment building, or a townhouse. So these text amendments help clarify that townhouses are treated differently because they don't have the same I guess, design elements as other projects. And then in the last portion in the RM zone, any development right now requires approval of a master development plan. That's generally captured through the subdivision process, but we're proposing to change that to say that a permitted use in that zone, which would be a single family dwelling, an accessory building, or home occupations, don't have to have a master development plan, separate from the subdivision. So those are really the big changes here.
where did we borrow these numbers from as far as the change and shift in setbacks? Is this a precedent someplace else?
Yeah, so most other zones have a 20-foot, like commercial zones, for example, have 20 feet, 30 feet is just really far, especially in an urban setting. That's a long way to have to be from the street, and then that would mean that they would have to landscape that whole 30 feet section, the whole width of the lot, which takes a ton of water. It's just not a very efficient use of land to require buildings to be 30 feet from the sidewalk. That's kind of useless.
Is there a project that prompted this text amendment?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest in townhouse development in the city. So there's a few that in just reviewing and talking with people, they bring up that standard and it just doesn't make sense. And it's interesting because the setback, I guess you can see it in here. Hold up. Oh man, I'm thinking of a different zone. So 20 feet is more common, I think, for a multifamily type project. I mean, most places actually have like a 5 to 10 foot setback or 0, depending on the context. Because it would be any multifamily development essentially, but 20 feet is more in line with what residential zoning.
And this is only for residential multifamily.
Right.
Could you pull up the multifamily zoning map so we can see what areas that this will be affecting?
Sure. Get it to where it's a little easier to see zoomed out. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it on the screens here, but let me try. So the darker orange color is the RM residential multifamily zone. So like the apartments down the hill here, I mean, it's again, mostly multifamily products in the Fort Union area, down by the freeway. Condo developments generally are RM.
Do we have any applications that this is going to actively affect for either a rezone or other areas that we need to? be
I mean,
conscious
we're
of?
currently reviewing a subdivision application for the former bank property on Bengal. That's a townhouse project.
But is that an RMF zoning or is that a community or a
It-
neighborhood commercial?
It is RM zoning.
Oh, it is?
And then I'm not aware of any other applications that are active. Actually, there is another one here.
The bank up on Bengal is not RM. That's neighborhood commercial.
No, it was rezoned to RM.
Did they get the
last
rezone?
year. Yep,
Oh,
yeah, this one.
okay.
So that one actually has already gone through the review process, and then there's a project here that's actively that's in the subdivision review phase, but this wouldn't affect their setbacks.
Okay.
So it's more anticipatory, knowing that it's just not a great practice to require a 30-foot setback for that type of product. I mean, it makes sense maybe in a single family neighborhood where you've got big estate lots, but it's pretty big relative to most other areas. Any questions?
So I know that we were exploring form-based code. I know that specifically around Hillside Plaza, and it looks like we've got quite a bit of RMF down in that area.
Yeah, there's a couple of properties that are many existing apartment projects are on RM.
From a setback standpoint, I mean, that extra 10 feet, especially in that arena, so between Hillside Plaza as well as up on Bengal, when we did do that rezone, and I'm trying to go back in my memory on that, specifically up on Bengal, 30 feet was the requirement on that. So I'm just trying to think of how in now a small little infill in the residential neighborhood, how that's going to affect if we're going to now extend that out when we just recently did some of these rezones. Especially being in a less dense neighborhood, I think if that was continued to be neighborhood commercial with those 30-foot setbacks, I have more comfort behind that. I have some concern specifically around the Bengal Boulevard RM specifically. Because that's going to affect the residents immensely.
Well, their setbacks are already 20 feet for residential.
Yes, but
So I guess it's just matching the building plane of existing buildings there.
with more density right there. I think that that's
Yeah,
more so
possibly.
my concern. Could you pull up that site really quick?
Which one
It's
exactly?
the Bengal Boulevard Chase Bank site.
Yeah. Yeah, so this one, I guess we could just measure real quick what. So this home is currently 18 feet from the sidewalk. So, I mean, 30 feet would be. Oops. And pretty far, hang on, let me fix this so it's not so.
Wouldn't the setback be from the front of the home and you're looking at the side of the home on that one?
Well, it's anything that fronts on a street.
Oh, okay.
So 30 feet would be back to there. I mean, it's
Well,
pretty
the front
big.
setback is 30 feet on that. If you go from the street that is
So from the property line, it's 20.
is that 20?
That's what I'm saying, is that 30 feet's really big, especially for a more dense product. Generally, you have smaller setbacks for a more dense product. But this would just bring it in line with what the character that's existing in most single family areas already is. So that's the rationale, and it's. I mean, it might be common for somewhere like Harriman that it's greenfield development and you're not constrained by infill, things like that, but. It's also just an efficiency of land to where the taxable value of a property is much higher if it's not all landscaping. You can use it more efficiently. You know, we're not making more land, but we can use the land that we have efficiently. And then there's a lot of arguments with just the sustainable elements of it, if not now having a landscape and water 10 more feet of your whole lot width for things like that.
And
So-
for me, I'm very comfortable with it on every other site but this one. Primarily because that rezone, a lot, I mean, I would like to go back and look at the meetings on that rezone, but I think a lot of it had to do with. You know, basically the density as well as the massing that was allowed with the RMF setbacks at the time.
Yeah, and it doesn't change the setback against any existing development. It's just the street setback.
Correct.
Right.
So I think that's kind of my only hesitation is that specific site for RMF, because that's brand new RMF zoning in our city. Where I think a lot of the other areas in this, I think having that setback is going to be great because it's adjacent to more commercial settings. Where this one's adjacent to more residential settings. And, you know, primarily because it went from neighborhood commercial to RMF on this. So that's my only hesitation on it.
Yeah,
Is
and
that specific site.
And I guess the existing bank building is. Yeah, about 30 feet, it looks like. That's what that setback is. But that would have been developed before the city was.
Yeah.
Was incorporated. Okay, any other comments, questions on that one? And this would be for all the RM, so it's not just for one property.
Yeah.
It's for everything.
Like I said, I'm very comfortable with it in the commercial adjacent RM, which is primarily the majority of the city that we have RM. It's not a very prevalent zoning in our city. But that little spot zone that just recently changed, I know that there was a lot of conversation around that rezone. And I think it's just something that we would want to evaluate further. So. Wonderful.
That's all I've got.
Do you have any updates on the old mill?
Oh, yeah, so. Not formally, we're still waiting from the applicant to submit additional information to review. I can provide an update on the structural analysis. So the consultants began that work last week. They went out to the site. They got a lot of drone footage and just did their initial site assessment to get the data they need to do what they do. So they're moving on it. I don't know when they're expecting to provide deliverables to the city, but they've got a target date of September 1 to have the completed report to us. So I anticipate in the next month or so, we'll have some more information on that. For context, for you guys that aren't familiar with this, so in January, or really last year about this time, the owners of the old mill submitted an application to demolish the structure. And because it's designated as a historic structure in the city, there's special standards that they have to satisfy before the city can approve a demolition permit. One of those is a certificate of appropriateness that the planning commission has to review and then recommend to the city council to make a final decision. In January of this year, we held a public hearing for that application. And based on our current code, we have to wait at least 1 year before the planning commission can take action after the first meeting. So right now we're in the middle of that 1 year waiting period. And during that time, we've asked the applicant to provide us with information justifying why they think demolition is the only avenue. And then the city has also commissioned a structural analysis with an engineering firm to assess what the current condition of the structure is to see if it's viable to save it or not. And that's what the consultants are working on right now. So we're hoping to have those findings in September. And then we'll share those with the planning commission, and then we'll essentially have until January of next year to mull over the data and come to a decision that we can then forward to the city council for them to ultimately decide how to move on that application. So, yeah, so that's the update.
Great. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Any other discussion points that you want to bring up today?
So I did have one comment just on the minutes. So Commissioner Smith couldn't be here, but he said when he reviewed the minutes, he saw one mistake where a comment was attributed to him, but should have been Commissioner Mills. Something about cities' effort to create sidewalks when new projects are underway. He thinks it was on page 13. So I don't know if we just want to table that until the next meeting so that we can make those corrections. He just wasn't very specific in what had to change, unless we can find it. Look and see. So something that was, it says Commissioner Smith, but really Commissioner Mills said it.
You know what that was, Commissioner Mills? Which is page 13, paragraph 1.
Okay. So I guess if we just make that change, then he didn't have any other comments. Okay. And then just for administrative stuff, during the business meeting, when we approved the consent agenda, the new commissioners that weren't here can just recuse themselves just because you don't know what the minutes were or what the meeting said. So, and then the other stuff should be okay to vote on.
Wonderful. I welcome a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right on.
Okay,
See you guys in a few minutes.
see you over in the council chambers here in about